Welcome to Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you are looking for an interesting commercial, marketing, and sales podcast that is bold, unfiltered, unconventional, and authentic, you are at the right place. Curious how to play the game better and smarter? We will share how we crack the code to hyper growth for our customers. We will invite amazing people. We will share our experience, the first attempts in learning, cracking the code, and finally the results. And last but not least, we will give you food for thought. Now, let's get started.
Hello everybody and welcome to the podcast of Serving Your Market like a King or Queen. And today we welcome Kees Henniphof. Welcome, Kees.
Hey, welcome guys.
Awesome to have you in, man. So let's quickly introduce Kees from my side before we go a little bit deeper into his story and the topic of today. So Kees currently is the CMO at Team Leader. He spent the last 20 years in IT and SaaS in several marketing roles. I've known Kees, I think, for now approximately almost 10 years, I guess, or so, when we collaborated in IT tech. So he lives in Utrecht with his wife and 2 kids. He runs, he reads, and he listens. And he found his home in B2B marketing a long time ago and has been enjoying every second of working in this environment ever since. So you've known marketing from quite some time ago, right? It's transformed heavily, but I think there are still some fundamentals quite critical that you've learned probably 10 to 15 years ago in today's environment. And I think that today's dialogue will definitely cover those elements as well. So again, great to have you in, Kees. So
thanks for having me.
The promise of today's podcast. So that's an exciting one. We hear this topic very, very often now in the community and in the market we're in. So and that today it will all be about how to marry brand and revenue while scaling in Europe. So we are extremely excited to have Kees in here and have a chat around this topic. So but before we go into the conversation, we every episode we have a drink with our guest. And Kees, what are you having today?
Yeah. So I'm slightly ashamed, but embarrassed. But right now I'm actually having a very quiet tea, and that is because this is not the time of day to already get into a drink. But after my workday is done, I will have a half liter of Grols, and Grols is for who doesn't know the beer that's created in the eastern part of the Netherlands, where I'm from. And that's our house brand. So already looking forward to it, but first a couple more hours of work to be done.
Cool, man. Exciting. And how about you, Lisbeth?
Yes, I keep it to a glass of Chardonnay. So cheers. And you, Jeroen?
Yeah, I went to my local shop. And I had a Moersleutel. It's from the beer engineers. And actually what triggered me in it is the etiquette. I'm not sure how you pronounce it actually in English, but it is all about sowing and reaping. And I think that's quite critical also with, you want to create brand awareness, right? And want to convert that into demand and revenue. You need to make sure that when you sow, you also reap it. And I thought it was quite in line with today's dialogue. So cheers, guys.
Nice one. Cheers.
So let's get started, I would say. The honor is mine, Kees, to kick it off. Yes, where I'm always curious about is how did you get where you are today?
So, that's a big question, but I'll give you the quick rundown. I've started a long time ago. I started as a copywriter, actually. So the first years of my career, I worked in marketing agencies, communication agencies as a copywriter, and working as a copywriter. Pretty much coincidentally, I started working for a number of clients in the IT industry, and I noticed that I really enjoyed that area because it allows you as a copywriter to explain, usually quite complex content concepts in easy words, in nice stories and sentences. So that's where I started off. At some point, I did a lot of work for Exact Software in Delft, and I got invited to kind of make the jump from the agency to Exact. So spent a couple of years there, and then after a couple of years, I went to NetApp, the data storage and data management company from Sunnyvale in California, and that was the first experience working for an American company, and I think that's where I really learned the marketing as a profession, as a discipline. Going through a number of trainings as a marketing organization, really about integrated marketing, demand generation, digital marketing. It was really the early stages of the digital go-to-market. So I'm still very happy that I went through that phase of really learning the digital marketing space from early on, and really the basics of it, which to Jeroen's point, I still benefit from today. After NetApp, I went to ServiceNow, so the service management platform. Tremendous growth story. When I joined, I think there were about 700 employees globally, and I was among the first group outside of the US in Europe. The headquarters were in Amsterdam, and we managed to build a good marketing team on the European level. And in the course of 6 years, ServiceNow grew from 700 to about 7,000, 8,000 employees. Huge revenue and valuation spike. So there I really learned the growth game and what it means to grow at that hyper scale. And all the energy and a bit of pain, but also the gain of going through these growth cycles. And then after about 6 years of ServiceNow, I thought it was time to try to get a bit closer to the fire in terms of business and marketing decision making. So I moved to Binder in Amsterdam, where I was the global VP of demand generation for about 2 years. And finally, I ended up where I am today at Team Leader. So Team Leader is a SaaS company headquartered in Ghent in Belgium, and also offices in Amsterdam and Paris. Next year, Team Leader will have been around for 10 years, so we have a 10-year anniversary. And we serve about 13,000 customers, currently with 2 product lines. One is a product line for the lower end of the SMB. It's called Team Leader Focus. This is, in terms of volume, by far the biggest product. So we have more than 12,000 active customers on the platform. And then the other product line is Team Leader Orbit, which is the result of an acquisition that we did in 2019. That is a similar product in terms of where it supports CRM, project management, and everything around invoicing, but not for the lower end of the SMB, but for the more of the mid-market or upper end of the SMB and lower end of the mid-market. Currently very successful in the agency space, so marketing agencies, advertising agencies, that really use that platform to manage the intake of customers, managing the projects and the work, and then all the financial processing of work done. So and as a CMO, I'm of course part of the management team, and we're currently pushing hard on, first when I got in, rebuilding the marketing team, because there had been some a troublesome period. We lost some people in the marketing team, so I spent the first half year really trying to get it back to strength in 3 teams. One is our brand studio, one is our growth team or demand gen team, and the third one is the go-to-market team, so more product solutions marketing. And now that we have it up to strength, also with strong leadership in, we're of course fully engaged in building the 2022 planning and make sure that we continue to grow in Belgium, our home market, but definitely also in the Netherlands and in France as our current growth markets. So, back to the question of marrying revenue with brand. I think in this, this is not a very big company. This may not be the biggest install base, but in terms of marketing and challenges, and having all the right questions on the table for a strategic marketer to kind of get down to, I think we have it all here. It's 2 product lines for very distinct audiences in 3 markets. In our home market, we are by far the market leader, very dominant. Also looking at very strong household brand, a lot of connections with other players in the SMB business. But in the Netherlands and certainly in France, we're tiny, and we are a challenger. So we need to create very different strategies, employ different tactics to get a foot on the ground, to establish the brand, to get the demand cycles going, and also really understand what it means in terms of positioning, generating leads, converting leads to customers on in subscriptions is completely different between those 3 markets. So enough challenges to put our teeth in, I would say.
Yeah, you're not done yet, right? So your journey is still going on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm just
getting. It would be boring without new challenges or new opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like how you bring actually, obviously, also the points from your whole experience with you, right? You've worked at larger corporations. You know how to work together with corporate. You want to play now closer to the fire, like you said, right? And but you have the ingredients set and rebuild your team with. I love the word brand studio, by the way. So that's an interesting one I've not heard earlier. So yeah, it's there in front of you, right? And it's now to make it happen in the next couple of years with the team. Yeah. So super excited for that.
Also, I think it's also the reason why scaling companies like Team Leader, in a certain stage of their life cycle, look for people who've kind of been through certain types of growth in certain types of companies, because typically, they're also looking for certain structure and certain ways of working. It sounds very, very maybe simplistic, but it's like at a certain stage when you get to a point in your growth where it's not enough to have a good culture and it's not enough to have the right energy in the company, it's time to really start taking some decisions and start taking certain trade-offs very seriously, because you cannot do everything at the same time. So the big challenge these companies run into is opportunity is very abundant, right? There's a lot of money in the market. Also, from an investor's point of view, typically money is not really the issue. It's about the strategy and the ability to execute on the strategy, right? And then it becomes really difficult to say no to certain opportunities and embrace other opportunities and then rally the teams around why these decisions are being taken. Because typically in these types of companies, there's also really strong, talented people, not necessarily with a lot of experience, but tons of energy. So what you see is there's never lack of ideas or plans, but there's typically a lack of decision taking and sticking with decisions and being a bit of a corporate citizen, although we all hate the word. But management, decides on a strategy, and now we need to get that strategy into action. If you don't have that corporate culture of how decisions trickle down through the ranks, and we've all been there.
Aligned goal setting, processes, those types of things, right? That is just a dream, right?
Translating them to the operational layers. There's also not a muscle in these companies, right? So it's not something people go like, oh yeah, that's so that's the objective. Let's take the objective and break it down into, and then break that down into it. That's all not there. It's more like, hey, we see an opportunity. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go all together.
Right? And then everyone starts working at the same time. And some people run around going like, no, hang on. You need to wait until that guy's done and up until a certain point in time, that is excellence. That's exactly what you need. And you're in full build mode and storming. But you reach a point where there's a lot of ideas and a lot of plans, but the execution is kind of going down because there's not enough decision taking and not enough kind of settling on a small number of things that we all get behind and go and execute. So I guess that's why at some point companies like Team Leader would look for someone like me with a bit of that experience, and not just in marketing, of course, in all different groups. So that's what I'm really focused on. Looking at 2022 is, preserving all of that energy and preserving all of that culture of attack, but then put a strong plan behind it and really put an onus on execution of the strategy.
Exciting, and I think something that can't be imprinted enough probably into the minds of people, I would say. So thanks for sharing that, Kees. So let's go a little bit deeper into the growth fundamentals, right? So what we see happening around us, right, is that we've entered a new era of business, right? One driven by growth and happiness to unlock success. So people and customers expect more than a paycheck or just a product that solves their pains. It's getting more and more relevant, and actually it's there now, right? A company that is good for their people, is also connected to a social cause, is not a nice to have anymore. It's really around a company that embraces that, right? And it's the time to act for companies is now. Just being there for financial gain, right? And to unlock the success of the company, then we know for sure that the people will be walking away, right? Because they can have it somewhere better, right? And so I'm curious on you're now the CMO of Team Leader, right? You're part of the executive and management team, but how has this influenced the development of your own leadership skills, and how has this changed maybe also the contribution you're delivering to the executive team?
Yeah, there's a couple of aspects on your question. If you look at my background, of course, I've been part of these American organizations for a good part of 15 years of my career. So, and I think, but please don't take this the wrong way, but these American organizations started embracing corporate social responsibility before European organizations did. And sometimes to a European eye and ear, it can be a bit exaggerated, right? Mm-hmm. These American companies and they talk about wanting to do good, taking a social objective as part of their
stand or something like that. Yeah.
And I when I was younger, I was also always quite skeptic about it. I was like, this is just bells and whistles, because at the end of the day, you want to make more money. Let's be very clear about this. But what I've come to learn and really understand is that in those American organizations, it all exists at the same time. In one of my previous companies, we were in learning and development, and sometimes young people coming into the company, they would give the feedback saying like, "Hey, when I was recruiting, the story was very much about we want to help people learn and develop." And therefore, we build a platform to help them set a learning plan together with the manager. You put the budget behind it, and then the platform helps you track your professional development as you go through trainings and learnings and coaching sessions and what have you. But then these young people say, I come into the company, and from day one, the only thing I hear is revenue, new customers, revenue, new logos, new logo growth. What's the MRR? What's the average expansion? And it's just about money. I feel like I've just been pulled into the company with a nice, shiny story about helping people to develop professionally, but it's all raw business on the inside. And that's what I think these American companies do a lot better, to be honest. Because in the American business environment, one doesn't go without the other. So you absolutely do have the mission of helping people to go through learning and development much easier.
Yeah, to become better every day, right? Basically.
So you use this platform and you learn, and as you learn, the platform allows you to have a very easy learning experience, and therefore it becomes more fun to learn, and you go faster, and at the end of the day you become a better professional. So great. But at the same time we make money, right? And we use that money to attract great talent, which can then improve the platform, which would then make the customer even more happy. So
and that's the value exchange.
Exactly. It's exactly value exchange. So in my experience, these American companies are very clear about this. This is not something to be ashamed of or like to hide between a nice story. It's like we make a lot of money and therefore we build a better product. And because we build a better product, our customers become better professionals. Very simple. Exchange of value, to your point. And I think in Europe, we have a bit of learning to do, to kind of marry the fact that we want to generate revenues to the purpose that we have as a company and the thing that we do for our customers and buyers and users. And it shouldn't be a different purpose. It's the same purpose, but there's money involved because we need to develop and innovate. So looking at Team Leader, my current company, in Team Leader, it's much less of an issue. It's not something that I have to put on the agenda because I feel we need to do it. Team Leader from when it was founded is very close to the SMB entrepreneur. It's really a company that is, and maybe that is true in SMB before it is true in the enterprise. When you work for small companies, the exchange of value and the importance of the relationship and the importance of terrific customer service is huge, right? I'm not saying it's not important in the enterprise, but it's like if you do not provide great service to an SMB company, they just go away.
No,
right? That's how they work. They expect the same level of service as they provide, and in the enterprise, very often that's true as well, but not all the time, I would say. So to be successful in an SMB environment, you need to put the customer first. You need to have a huge focus on customer service. You also need to have a huge focus on user experience in the software, in the product, because SMBs don't have time, so it cannot be complex. They need to, if it's for the day-to-day business, it needs to be super easy. Not a lot of training involved, not a lot of not a long learning curve to adopt the software. It needs to be consumer level, easy to adopt, and then it needs to create tremendous value, right? Because if you look at what Team Leader does, sell, build, and organize for SMBs, this is the kind of the stuff that entrepreneurs do in the evening, right, or over the weekend. Yeah. They see it as admin. To do the quotations and the invoices. Project management shouldn't be a super difficult waterfall type thing. It should be, hey, I have a to-do list with a team of 5, and I quickly need to set the tasks, distribute them across my team, get an update on my phone, and that's kind of it, right? So it's not super complex. It's super relevant. And it's simple and easy, and there's terrific customer service. So if they do need help, we're here through whatever channel they want to engage us. And then on top of that, we do things that that, things that we like to do to show that we care for our customers. For instance, last Friday, it was in Belgium and the Netherlands, it was the day of the entrepreneur, de dag van de ondernemer.
We missed that one. We should have celebrated it.
So this wouldn't happen in Team Leader, right? That's exactly my point. It's like, this is an important day for our audience, and therefore it's an important day for us. But what I learned from this management team, and especially from our CEO, Jeroen de Wit, he is always thinking about, what can I do for my customers? What else can I do? So if you look at the Day of the Entrepreneur, every year, for a couple of years now, we organize the Team Leader Heroes Run. And this was something that started with, in the early stages of Corona, we noticed that all of these companies and all these businesses were shutting down, going inside. We work for service businesses who really rely on the interpersonal contact with their customers. They sell their hours, right? So they go over. Often they work at their customers' premises, and Corona crisis had a massive impact to our audience, and we get this feedback. So Jeroen said, I want to organize, some activity that will pull these guys out of their home offices, get them moving, get them running, create some energy. So we came up with the Team Leader Heroes Run. It's an application, you download it, you put it on, you select 2.5 or 5 or 10 kilometers, you get out there, and as you walk or run, you get all these pieces of advice from business people, well-known sports.
Cool.
People,
wow.
Really cool.
Yeah, really nice. And it's all about mental well-being, business, a healthy business fitness, all these topics that people are really focused on these days, because people struggle to just keep moving forward and not be worn down by the Corona crisis and all the rules and regulations that they have to fight with. And it's their worry, therefore it's our worry, and therefore we come up with something nice to kind of, and we don't expect any revenue or whatever, right? It's just, we go out, we run, we take a nice picture, we have some prizes.
Yeah.
And it's really not about revenue. It's about showing people that we're
that you care. Right, that you
exactly.
care, that you care for your audience, right? your authentic self, and that's
and that is for the long run. That is absolutely for the long run, because at the end, when you're talking about brand experience, it's not something like it's standing far away from your own culture or your values. So if caring is really one of your core values, and in this case you really act on it, that's where you make a difference as a brand, because maybe every other SaaS company can kind of copy, or they think they have a unique product or a solution, but it's not that unique. But here you really make a difference as a brand on why you build relationships through what you are saying right now, and that stays.
Yeah,
I think
so, and that's really because one of the questions you asked preparing was like, what are you learning in your current job when it comes to exactly this? It is this, that our CEO, he is a real entrepreneur. He started this business 10 years ago, and now we have 13,000 customers and 20 million ARR. So that in and of itself is something I'm really impressed with. But seeing how he does it, it's about these things. It's really not about Excel sheets and strategy and blah blah blah. It's about getting out there and being among your customers and understanding what's driving them. And I know these are all very cheap words, because the internet is full of pages where these things are written down, like sit next to your customer, put your customer centric at the heart of everything, and it's very true. I'm not saying it's not true. It's more that I'm saying you need to really show it in your behavior.
Exactly.
Put it into practice, right? It's the same with
living and breathing it.
It's the same with purpose, right? We all know I always give the examples of in the Netherlands to say tegeltje aan de wand, or the big enterprise customer comes in and then hey, where's that purpose and vision slide that we need to put on the first slide, right? To impress A, B, C, D, E. But that's not what it's about, right? And that leads me a little bit more into.
I have a nice story about.
Okay, cool. Go on.
When I was interviewing with ServiceNow a long time ago, I just came out of NetApp. I was talking about that, and in NetApp we had gone through this classic rebranding operation with big agencies from San Francisco and mood boards and customer interviews and partner interviews and employee sounding board, blah blah, the whole shit.
Exactly.
And out of that came a phenomenally beautiful brand, and I mean it. Sometimes I sound like I'm making a joke about it, but it was terrific, and really also why. Well, anyway, it was terrific. So let's leave it there. But then, so I had gone through that experience and learned an awful lot about branding and brand management and all that stuff. And I go to ServiceNow, and to end the story about NetApp is at the end of it, we also got new corporate values. And then all of the corporate values were put on nice posters. The posters were kind of pasted around the office. It was like integrity and was trust and, get it done. Great. It's really important, these things. Don't get me wrong, but putting them on a poster really doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything. So now I'm interviewing with ServiceNow, and the CMO at the time was Beth White. Very, very strong lady. And I came out of that experience. And this is also, you also asked for fail. I don't know if this is a fail, but I love to fail. So I have many examples. But this is one that I always come back to is I'm in this interview with this big CMO, and I'm kind of shitting myself because interviewing a CMO is always, you don't want to say the wrong thing. Anyway.
That's the same what we have now with this podcast, by the way. Right?
No, I know. So, yeah. Just to keep you guys at ease. But so at the end of this conversation, I'm saying all the right things, and I really sound like a good corporate citizen, demand gen dude, know it all. And we have that conversation, and at the end of it, she says, "Well, great conversation." And by the way, I got hired, so it was quite a good conversation. But she says, is there anything else you would like to ask? I said, well, thank you for asking. I would like to know about your corporate values. And, because I can't find them on the website. And, I know for a fact this is probably one of the most important things, good corporate values, etc. I probably talked a bit about NetApp and all that stuff. And it was my 5 p.m., so it was her 8 in the morning. So
exactly,
I could just tell. In my memory, I hear her sigh, like, well, that was a really good question. So, but she gives a big sigh. Said, "You know what, Kees? I hope that we hire people who've kind of already gone through all of that stuff and just know." That we expect you to be very display integrity and that we can trust you because we give our marketing organization to you and we also hope that you will work very hard and that you will all these things that these people put on posters and put in the office.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's first build a magnificent business and then worry about our corporate values, shall we? I was like, okay, Beth. I will do.
Will do.
But corporate values, in all honesty, of course, are really important. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it feels like we're just making a nice list of these no-brainer values, and we call them our corporate values, and we put them on the wall. But
I don't completely agree. But unless if it's more that kind of hygiene factors like, integrity, honesty, trust, everyone, that's the basic of, from my perspective, doing business. But we're talking about, we dare to say that we are bold or, that we will challenge you because you will benefit from it. These are kind of distinctive values, if it's really in your DNA, of course, but if that is part of your DNA, you know, saying what you're saying about your current CEO, he puts people first. If you really bring that into practice, it doesn't have to be a sign on the wall, but he brings it in practice by, for example, the app you were talking about. You know, he really proves it that he cares. So caring isn't the word, but he really lives and breathes it. And then you really make the difference in the market. And then it really becomes part of your DNA and your brand. And that is something else.
I'm really not disagreeing. I'm just saying that as long as it is used and applied and lived and breathed like that, I completely agree. Team Leader has really nice corporate values. One, for instance, is be a lobster. And the reason is, the lady is taking a sip. Right? Be a lobster means grow out of your shell. If you need to, if you need to grow, sometimes it can be very difficult. You need to really, that's what lobsters apparently do. I didn't even know this. But lobsters kind of throw off their shell and then grow a new one, which is bigger. And that's how they grow. So I think that's really good. Team Leader also has choose positivity and be surprising. So be surprising. To give another example, when I just first joined Team Leader, Jeroen said, "Hey, come over to my place on Thursday because I want to do a barbecue." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I get in the car and I drive to Oostakker, which is a small Belgian village outside of Ghent.
And you brought your Grolsch beer, right?
Of course, maybe more than one. So, but honestly, and I hope he's not listening to this one, but honestly, I was thinking, because he had told me I'm building a new house. I was like, oh great, new house, but it wasn't anywhere near finished. So I was like, okay, I had this mental image of me standing in his backyard, which was not really landscaped or anything, flipping burgers, and I was like, yeah, great, this is all part of the business. So I get there and I park my car, and it was exactly like that. I was like, this half-baked house. It was huge and beautiful in 6 months, right? But right now it was work in progress. So I thought, okay, and I walk around the house and I see heaps of building materials, and I was like, okay. But then behind that is Jeroen, and he's holding a big cocktail, and with a big smile on his face. And behind him was a professional tent with a cook. With an island with
nice.
who happened to be Michelin star cooks. And then there was like 20 or 30 people of the leadership who were sitting there. And I must say that was a phenomenal barbecue. So again, and I said it to him then, you're taking that whole be surprising thing to a whole new dimension for me. And I think that's the point. So Lisbeth, that's the story, just to confirm what you said. Huh?
Yes.
Oh man, that's I like that story, and I think the Belgians they know how to cook good food, right? I think it's different than the spekloop with pindasaus in the Netherlands. It's a different ballgame, man. So okay. So I'm curious on I think we probably go a little bit more into the How do you actually do that, man? So that marrying that brand and revenue, so to get that competitive advantage, where do you start with that, and how do you do that?
So again, that's not an easy answer. Eh? Otherwise,
I know.
we're discussing it. So and for Team Leader, it is also a very acute question, like here and now, because we are market leaders in Belgium, and we have a lot less brand building to do in Belgium as a result. But in the Netherlands and France, we're really challengers, and we're quite big in the Netherlands. We like to even say that we're market leaders in our category in the Netherlands. But to me, that is always a bit of a marketing game. Like, oh yeah, let's define a really small category and call ourselves the category leader. That's quite easy. If you look at the actual competitive landscape in the Netherlands, I think we're still very small, because our competitive landscape is Dutch SMB, and the last time I checked, that's about 600K organizations, of whom we do business with a handful. So market leader, category leader or not, there's still a truckload of business to be done there. and that is about building a brand. So what we did in the Netherlands is we did take a fairly traditional approach of doing above the line brand campaigning on a theme, and the theme we chose was on a roll, op rolletjes. So with Team Leader, your business is on a roll. We want to.
So you have specifically chosen not to start with promoting your product first, right? Really claiming that theme. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but that's also because I wanted to do a campaign that could be an umbrella for the two product lines, right?
Cool.
So we have our SMB product and we have our
I truly love, sorry to interrupt you, umbrellas and, having everything multi-integrated, but go on.
I'll ask you a question in a couple of minutes.
Oh, okay.
But, so, yeah, because that way the umbrella could serve both product lines, right? And you were triggered earlier by my brand studio team, and this is, very simply put, you can say this is an internal agency. So we have all the skill sets in that team that you would look for in an advertising agency, from creative and concept, graphical, the designers, copywriters, videographer, all those skill sets. But more importantly, the heart of the team is a bunch of guys who've been with the company for a very long time, and who absolutely understand the heartbeat of the company. So
and the purpose, probably, right?
Huh?
And the purpose, the heartbeat and the purpose of the company. Exactly.
So whatever they come up with in terms of ideation and conceptualization is always already on a high level, and then with the right leadership and the right the go-to-market team providing the analysis and the insights and the reasons to buy and the jobs to be done and all that good stuff that they come up with, and the growth team really showing the performance of the various channels that we run. That brand studio came up with that concept of on a roll, of putting entrepreneurs on roller skates, very, very literally, in a very stylized office environment, and then the promise of Team Leader putting your team on a roll. And that was just a very simple but powerful idea. We turned it into billboards, radio commercials, a lot of online materials from videos and display, etc. And then we also started telling stories of how we actually did this in our customers. Wow. And it was it wasn't huge in terms of, if you look at the set of creatives, like, was it a very vast campaign? No, I would say it was rather small and targeted, but with a good big story that could connect with many insights and many of the pains that we look to address in our prospect audiences.
And I think you're mentioning a very important point now, Kees, right? Because I think these air over or claiming topic team type of things, right, Lisbeth? I think sometimes companies think that this is just for large corporations who have deep pockets, right? But I think you're exactly explaining here that if you do a targeted focus on your niche, you can also do that. It doesn't matter, right? We have another example of a client of ours, right, Lisbeth, where we are claiming the topic making IT carbon free. That's also it's a smaller company, right, in Scotland, and it's the same thing. They're not big pockets like Microsoft or NetApp, like you said, right? But and I think that's a beautiful example, Kees.
Yeah,
and stories connect. So I think that's why it's so important to have that within your go-to-market and campaign strategy. If you're able to claim a topic, and you create a very nice strategic narrative around that as well, when you're in conversations with your customers, etc. That's where you because stories stick. And if you connect those values you're talking about and the distinctive values, then, and you combine those two, well, that's, from my perspective, where the magic happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's important that story is very close to who you want to be for your prospects and customers. Like with Team Leader, you can put your team on a roll. This is who we want to be. We want to be next to that SMB entrepreneur, feel their pain, understand their challenges, and come up with software and services that helps them, that make life a bit easier. Very simple, right? And how we do that, and which screens and buttons and modules and things, first we need to get them to be interested in us as a service provider, as us, putting a hand out and say, hey, we're here to help you. Come and discover us, right? And from there on, of course, at a certain point, it will turn into a landing page and a conversion and an SDR team calling out and scoring engagements and all that stuff that you do once it turns into the actual lead gen side of the business. But before that, claiming that theme and picking that theme, because that is also really difficult. And that's why I'm so impressed with that brand studio who come up with a storyline that is simple enough to be attractive to a volume of audience, which is SMB in a very clear way, is important. And then also, to your point, not just doing a shot of radio ads for a week and then that's it. Let's come up with the next theme. It's like literally what the team said is, we feel this is strong enough to last us at least 2-3 years, and let's see how.
That's what it's about, and there you get your return on investment.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's where you marry brand and demand. That's not with the short things and let's do some individual brand campaigns here, and then we have a separate outbound team or an inbound team that sometimes they're even competing for resources and money, right? It's ridiculous, right?
I get it. And in a company like Team Leader, it's a small company, you feel these forces all at the same time. And again, I can't speak for bigger companies, but of course there are investors and they need short-term return.
Of course.
There is a sales team that is scaling up quickly who need leads. Very simple, because they need to be busy. There is an always-on analytical machine that is crunching the data on cost of engagement, cost per lead, cost per this, cost per that, cost of acquisition, cost of sales, cost of service, the whole thing. And because you have a board of directors and investors, there's no way you cannot go to them and say, hey, we accept the cost of acquisition and your CAC over LTV over CAC to suck for a year, because right now we're building our brand out there. So bear with us. Of course not. You need to kind of be very, very planned in making those investments. Have your always-on machine running at the same time. Do all of the work in your social and your content marketing so that you generate inbound traffic to offset the investments, right? Of course, you are doing that at the same time. And that's why I keep telling people that, it may look easy to throw a campaign out there like that, but everything else has to continue, because otherwise the cost of running that campaign is not offset by the customers you take in today, because you need to take in customers, right? Otherwise, your CAC will explode, and
you probably are out of business.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason why I truly loved to build, multi-integrated global campaign strategy where everything comes together, from brand awareness to demand generation, sales enablement, and customer engagement. Because that's at the end in a whole flow. We're talking about, not standalone activities, but how everything is connected, and then connected to your different services, or connected to different countries or markets you want to entry or to expand. That's where it's all about.
Yeah. I in Team Leader right now, it's 3 markets. So, I can't really follow that whole, I've seen it, of course, the global execution. I also know the challenges.
You dream of it.
But running a global integrated campaign, I remember back in NetApp and ServiceNow days, typically that turns into a kind of a cookbook of demand gen placed, where you can kind of pick and choose and then come up with your local adaptation of a global go-to-market that was devised somewhere in Silicon Valley. With all due respect, because the intention is exactly.
No, that doesn't work. You need to localize. You need to localize.
It works very well, actually.
Yeah, well, my experience is that if you are able to connect it to the localization, then you make the true impact. Because you're working in Belgium. The Belgian culture is so different than the Dutch one. So your whole messaging, needs to have a kind of different tone of voice, probably.
Yeah.
So that is what I mean with, having the strategy in place, but then at the same time, making sure that it fits your local market.
Yeah. Yeah, no debate there. What I mean when I say that those global rollout approaches do actually work is when local teams are actually enabled to pick up concepts and localize them, or even transcreate them into something that can work locally. But at the same time, I also know that is really, really painful, right?
Yeah, so, painful and difficult, right? If it was easy.
A podcast like this, you can chat about and no one would disagree. But in practice, getting like 20 or 30 field teams to build local strategies of a cookbook type, providing of demand gen is just it's a thingy.
It's challenging,
it
right?
Asks expertise, and also we have a saying in Dutch, right? Standing strong in your shoes. If I translate it, you really have to convince the management, etc., that they have to do it a different way, and that's not easy. I agree, but if you're able to make the change, it's fun.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Cool. Let's. I see we are. We could probably talk for hours, right? But I would say let's go into the final stages of this conversation, and I think could you? We have two more questions for you. Okay, so first one is, could you give 3 tips for the ones that want to get started with marrying brand and revenue? What would those tips be?
Well, first of all, understanding your brand has to come first, and understanding your brand essentially is understanding the customer and what the brand means to the customer, right? And I don't mean that in a marketing-y way. I mean that in a very hands-on, human, interactive. Get out there, talk to customers, and understand who you are as a brand. And it sounds a bit strange that you have to go out to ask your customer who you are, but really,
I like it. It's very unconventional, at least. And it's a different approach. So I like it, and therefore probably it's also easier, because sometimes people think with these types of things, and big brand research with large cost involved, I cannot do that. And this you actually give an example here of a 2-person company could even do this, right?
Yeah. So and keep that very real, right? And don't try to be something or someone who you really aren't. So be very honest about it, and be that brand, and then understand where value is created, right? Because value is the most difficult thing, but also the most powerful thing. If you understand where value is created, you also understand where your revenue is created, and then the two will have to be the same thing. You need to bring that together and try to make that one thing. So who you are to your customer is the value you create for your customer, is the thing they will actually be happy to pay for, right? And now, so this is all, this is all the stuff to investigate and to discuss and agree on within your team, your company. And get all the people in that boat, and then bringing that to the market means building communication and building content strategies that is just telling that story and amplifying that story with strong and very visual examples of the value you create. Right. So for us, the example we have with that, I talked about the Team Leader Heroes run.
No.
The example on the low mid-market product Team Leader Orbit is that we want to be the brand of choice for agencies, right? Now, what we do for agencies is we built the Agency Live program. An Agency Live program is almost like a Netflix series of video interviews with groups of agency people. And we talk about running an agency. So we don't talk about the shiny front end of agency, the creatives and the people with blue hair.
Exactly.
We talk about the Excel sheet stuff and what is your revenue per customer and what are your best customers and are they the ones you spend the most time on and what is the average revenue per employee and all these performance metrics that agencies really run on. And we ask customers using our Team Leader Orbit product to come in and talk about these things and never talk about software, because it's really not about software. It's about running a business. And we generate a tremendous amount of conversation and inflow, and all these agencies, of course, are looking at one another and know each other. It's a very small world. So it creates, I wouldn't say a community, but it does create a conversation among agencies, and people refer each other to Agency Live program, and people send me messages and go like, hey, can I be on your next season of Agency Live because I want to talk about this.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice.
And then we get engagement going, and then we run an event or a meetup or we run some more research, and we just keep that going. And at some point we will strike a conversation about the software you use to run your business.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's another example of just being who they need you to be and be where the value is created.
Cool, awesome.
Thanks.
Man. Love it.
I have a last question for you. With a short answer, please. What is you have had, from my perspective, a very nice journey so far. What is still on your bucket list? Is there anything on your bucket list?
My bucket list. Yeah, I'm not really a bucket list person. So it's interesting. When I started in marketing, I didn't really have a plan on where I wanted to end up. I just ran into terrific opportunities, and it gave me a lot of energy and passion to make the best of it. And then the next opportunity presents itself. And I very strongly believe that if that's your view of life, and I mean it in all aspects of life, the right things will present themselves. And I don't mean that in a Buddhist type of way. I mean it very hands-on. Like if you're open to the things that befit you and that belong to your path, then they will present themselves. So my big bucket list is somewhere out there, and it will find me.
That's the most beautiful one I've ever heard.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
It will
Awesome,
find
man.
you. Cool.
Thanks a lot for this inspiring conversation, man, and all your stories of your journey, and also giving us a little bit of a peek on the insights of how it works in the business you're in today at Team Leader. So yeah, truly exciting, and yeah, I can only say that probably from my part, to wrap up the conclusion of this podcast, right? It's sometimes people could have the impression that a topic like this is only for the big giants, right? With the big pockets and the wallets, right? That's not the case. I think how you have explained that and how you can start with this, right? It's building that foundation and your brand to truly understand that. Go into a conversation with customers around who you are and who they think you are, what value you can deliver. That's so critical. it's essential that obviously that your product and your go-to-market and etc. and your campaign strategy is tied and connected to that. But it really starts with defining who you are as a brand and who you want to be in a market and connected to a topic to claim. I think you gave them some great practical advice as well, next to more strategical leadership things. So and I think that's what we love to hear, Kees. So if people want to hear more about this, probably want to hear more about these stories. Think, wow, I want to work for team leader. How can I reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm just on LinkedIn. I'm very much on LinkedIn. So find me there, connect. I'm also very open to question. I do some coaching, just because I like it. So if you want some support or some ideas, I'm very approachable. So just let me know, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome, man. That's what we like to hear. So thanks a lot for investing your time and having this great dialogue with us, Kees. And thanks everybody for listening in. And we hope to see you next time.
Lisbeth, thank you.
Okay,
right.
Thank you, Kees. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Serving Your Market as Kings or Queens. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll catch you in the next episode.